Welcome everyone to the Quick Tip webinar for SmartCAM Containers. Our next webinar will be in a month on March 16th, and we'll be covering the topic of tool library and KBM. If you have any specific questions about either of those subjects, a combined subject, please send them to Casey, and he'll make sure that he covers those items. A couple things to know. The demo portion of the webinar will run about 16 to 20 minutes, and we'll have 5 to 10 minutes for questions and answers, and possibly some little bonus tips if we have plenty of time. The webinar is being recorded, so you don't need to worry about taking notes, and we'll send you the link as soon as it's available. For best viewing, you want to maximize your screen. And if you see the participant circle bubbles, they call them, and join me, and you don't want them to be displaying, you can toggle them on and off by clicking on the fourth icon on the Join Me icon bar and choose to hide the participant bubbles. Your microphones will be muted for the entire webinar, so if you have any questions, click the chat feature, which is the second button icon on the icon bar. And go ahead and send it that way, and we will hold those till the end. If we don't have time to get to your question, we will reply by email to it and make sure that that gets covered there. So let's get started. Casey Baker is our applications engineer and has been training SmartCAM users for over 25 years. For the last little over a year, he's been running the SmartCAM Training Center here in Oregon. He is one of the most experienced programmers to be found, and we are very happy to have him working for us. If you're interested in some in-depth SmartCAM training, Casey is the person you want, and contact your account manager or Casey, and we can get that information to you. So with that, I will pass it over to Casey, and we'll start.
Okay, today's topic is containers. We're going to go through creating process containers and manual containers. I'm going to show you how they get created, and we'll create a few and go through that. So the first thing I'd like to look at is the container panel. Right-click and hit Modify. This brings up the Modify Container panel. I'm going to give this one a name, Pocket, and you can see the description is pocketing process. Now across the bottom we see preserve, unpack, prepend, append, recall, and purge. This first one, preserve, is in place in order to rename a container or to change the description. It just preserves what's inside of the container. So when I hit accept, you can see up here in the list view what previously was called process is now called pocket. So you can give your containers a name to have more description. The second item across the container panel is unpack. If I click what that does is it removes all of the elements from the container and drops them into the list view. So when I hit accept, watch down here the total number of elements, and you'll see up here the elements will be removed from the container. So hit accept, and you now see all of the elements that were in that container. You'll also notice that this number down here was 184, now it's 224. So that is unpack. That's what unpack does. I'm going to hit the undo button just to back up from where we unpacked. The next two, what I'm doing here to open up that process panel is I'm right-clicking and then clicking on modify, and it brings up the container panel. The next two are prepend and append. If the container is empty, it doesn't matter what you pick there, but if there are already elements in the container and you want the group to be added at the beginning of the container, you click on prepend. If you want it at the end, you'll pick append. And we'll be using that in a few minutes. I'll show you. So if I hit accept here, if I group, I've unpacked everything. If I group everything in step, oops, I picked the wrong one. Step 30. So down here you can see I've got 41 elements of 224. And I pick on the container. If I hit prepend and accept, now look up in the list view and you see all those elements have been packed back into the container. I'll clear out the group. The next item across the bottom of the panel is recall. What recall will do is bring up the panel that created the roughing passes. So hit accept, and you can see here is a start point, boundary, first pass level, final pass level. What I'm going to do here is change the width of cut to 0.18, and I'll hit regen. Before I do, notice this number right here, 184. I'm shrinking this width of cut, so we're going to get more passes, but this 184 won't change because currently all of that roughing is within a container, a single element. But if you notice up here in the graphics area, you'll notice that the toolpath will get closer together when I hit regen. So there it is. So there's the new roughing passes. And I'll hit accept, and now that's changed. So that's what all it takes to change the properties of a container. And what I want to do next is create a manual container. So we'll window in here to these holes. What we've got are 6 spot drill and 6 drilled holes. I'll mask the peck drill. Leaves me with just the spot drill. I'll group the spot drill. You can see they highlighted, and down here you see 6 elements of 184. And I will create user element container. I'm going to give this a name of and spot drill 1/2. And I hit go. Now watch up here in the list view. Where there were 6 holes here, now there's 1 container element, and it contains the 6 spot drills. Be aware that creating a container and putting elements in a container will not change show path, will not change show cut, and it will not change code. It will output code exactly as it would have had you not had the containers. So I'm going to mask a spot drill and turn on the drill. We'll do that one more time. I'll group the drilled holes. Again, you can see they highlight. And we'll create user element container. And I'll call this one spot drill. Or, no, peck drill. I meant peck drill. Peck drill and go. Not supposed to have a space in there. Okay, now you can see in the list view, we've got 170 as peck drill, 169 as spot drill. This illustrates a little bit I'm going to turn the spot drill back on. Close. You can see in the list view, instead of having 30 or 40 or 50 elements. Now we've just got 3. Element 169, 170, and 171 are the 3 containers that we just created. So it shrinks the database quite a bit. Now, we'll go back and create 3 more pockets. Insert with step 30, process, rough, and pocket. Now, what creates these containers is this icon down here in the lower right. It is the Create Container on or off button. Right now, with a blue background, it is on. So it will create a container when I hit the go button. So user start point, first pass level minus 0.25. I can see my width to cut is still 0.18. I'll hit go. And element 1, 2 is this pocket. I'm just going to go ahead and do the other 2 here. Minus 0.25 and go. And then boundary. And first pass level minus 0.25 and go. Now if we get an ISO view, we can see that each of those have 2 Z levels. We're roughing out the 4 pockets, but we've done it with 4 elements here in the list view instead of probably over 100. So it allows you to just see all of your database, what your processes are, and it down into a more manageable number of elements. Now, what happened here is we sent this out to the shop, we made the part, and the engineering department came back to us and said, we don't want that center rib. So they sent something like this where it was missing this rib. They just wanted 3 pockets instead of 4. So I'll turn step 30 back on. And I want to show you how you can regenerate a container with a new boundary. I'll just get rid of one of those containers, and then I'll modify the middle one. So I'm going to right click on the process, click on modify, click on recall, which will bring back, when I click accept, it'll bring back the panel that made that pocket. Hit boundary, I'll pick that boundary there. User start point, I'll pick out here in the center someplace, and minus 0.25 for first level. And when I hit regen, it recreates that container based on the new boundary definition. So I'm going to show you a similar type thing in production turning. I'll minimize here, bring up production turning. Here's an example of a part that I used to do at a previous company I worked for. It's very common with a particular customer. We had a thread diameter with a thread relief, a bearing journal, and then an OD. What I used to do was program a part like this and, of course, save it, run it out the shop and make the part, and everything's good. Well, the next day, we'd come in and there'd be a part like very similar, but this one may have, of course, a thread area, a bearing journal, maybe a lip seal area, and an OD, and then with a new material definition. So what I used to do was I would take the previous job and I would merge the new layer geometry on top of the older job. Now, what I have here is I'm going to get rid of the original image profile and the original material definition and just delete them. So now you can see I've got a roughing container that doesn't fit the current part, but if I go up here and right click on it and modify and click on recall to bring back the panel that made that roughing pass, hit accept. Now if I enter the new profile, profile start, profile end, the new material boundary, all of my parameters down here don't change. I just hit regen, and there's your roughing pass for the new profile. So if we were to go show cut and hit start. So by having roughing passes that worked a week ago, you're just creating with a new finished profile, and any of the parameters you have in there worked a week ago, they should work today. Everything should be fine. All we changed there was the finished profile and regenerated and then accepted. And we have the new roughing for the new part. So that is it for the container. What I want to show you, one last thing I want to make sure you see is one of the things I've heard people is they don't like how if they want to change something, they have to unpack it and then repack. Well, in reality, it doesn't take to unpack a container. I right-click it, right-click, modify, unpack, accept. So I've just unpacked that first pocket. If I wanted to change something like cut direction or change the Z levels, I could change the Z levels in the part, then put it back in the container. I just regroup it. I'm going to go to that. Let's see, it was this one here. And here's where I can hit prepend or append, it doesn't matter which, and hit accept. Now it's back in the container. You can see the element listing is down to 176. It was 200 something. So that is it for containers. As Hugh said, we do have a few extra minutes. As Hugh said, two very short topics I wanted to let people know about. And in doing training, I've seen people don't use these two little tips. So the first one is increment. I go to utility and increment. Mine is generally set to 0.01. What I found is if I sometimes go in and change this to maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, and then when I'm creating create geometry lines, notice these numbers down here in the lower left, they're incrementing by 1/4 of an inch. So it's much quicker to draw. Maybe I use this to draw material. And you can just follow those numbers and draw your material with the mouse as opposed to keying the numbers in from the keyboard. The second I wanted to point out to people was view mask, show mask. Over on the right, mask by Z level. Above and below, you can mask elements by Z level also. We haven't had this forever. I mean, it's been around for a while, but people don't think to use that. So just be aware of that when you have a very complex drawing and you're trying to focus in on a certain area, you can mask by Z level. It's very, very useful. So that is it. Unmute me. I'm going to unmute you. Okay.
All right. So thank you, Casey. We have just a couple of questions have been sent in. Kenny asks, when would I want to use a manual container over a process container?
Well, they are different. The process container is created when you go to the process pull-down menu. And so if you go to process rough pocket or group pocket, that will create a process container. If you have existing geometry on the screen, that is when you would create a manual container.
All right, great. The next one is from Alex, and it says, he asks, can a container be copied to another model file, or do you have to use merge?
Yes, you could. In fact, I had different containers saved in doing what the previous company I used to work for. I had different files saved, and all they had was a container, and it might be for like threading or a pocket or anything else. But yes, you can save individual part files, and all they contain is a container that you can then open and start a file, or you can merge it into a solid model.
Okay, great. Got the next question is from Jeff, who asks, why is it that recall is not always highlighted? I'm assuming he means in the process container panel.
Let me open that up. Well, recall is not always highlighted because you may want to, if you want to just rename the container, you would use preserve. If you want to unpack it, you would use that. If you want to add to it, you'd use prepend or append. So everything you do is not necessarily recall. It depends on what you're trying to do with the container.
All right, great. Any other questions, gentlemen, and others? All right. Well, I guess that looks like it's the end of the webinar. Thanks, Casey. Really appreciate everyone for attending. And as I mentioned, we'll send an email to you to get your feedback and to give you a link to the recording of the webinar and to provide you contact information for Casey. And also, again, if you're interested in finding out more about the benefits of SmartCAM training by Casey, please contact your account manager or Casey. And thank you very much. Have a great day.